This is Industry Relations, a podcast at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson. In today's tough real estate market, keeping buyers motivated and loyal is key. Now is the time to leverage the power of One Home by CoreLogic and the best-in-class data and client collaboration experience it brings. Seamlessly integrated into Matrix, One Home delivers unbeatable engagement and one of the highest customer satisfaction scores amongst the top 10 national real estate portals. More impressively, One Home leads the pack by keeping users coming back with the highest repeat visits. With One Home's invite-only access, agents can provide their clients a truly exceptional experience. Don't forget to remind your MLS members to try this great value-added benefit. If your MLS hasn't added One Home yet, please reach out to your CoreLogic rep. Thanks again to CoreLogic for sponsoring the Industry Relations podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your host, the notorious ROB, and as always, the amazing, my co-host, the fabulous Greg Robertson.
You know, it's like for those, we have this little side thing right before we get on, and like Rob just like throws a little bomb out there, okay, and then just says, "Let's start recording." It's like. So,
it's not much of a
I think
bomb.
you're just doing that to fuck with me or something. Sorry. Beep.
I know, right? Oh, man. How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Yeah. I'm great. Although, you know, in the pre-show, you were telling me about this horrifying ritual they have going on in Southern California high schools.
I don't think it's just Southern California, but yeah.
Yeah. You want to tell the audience about it? You know, maybe they have high school age children and they don't know. I know I'm calling my son, who's in high school, immediately after this is over. I'd be like, you know, is this happening?
Oh, yeah. Maybe. I mean, Texas has got to happen, right? I mean, so
I don't know. I hope
again,
not.
Here's what I understand it to be. I don't know if this is the official name. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, but my son Toby calls it Senior Assassin.
Right.
So basically it's a group of seniors. I'm not sure if it's all seniors who want to participate. You have to get this particular type of water gun. Like doesn't even look like a gun. It looks like a phaser or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're given a person's name, and your goal is to, you know, get them with the water gun, right?
Yeah.
You can't do it during school hours, right? So there's a lot of stalking, you know, while people are going to their car in the mornings, I guess.
Seems like a wonderful idea, doesn't it? I mean, you know.
And then there's everybody has like a safety item. So if you put a pair of swim goggles on, now you don't have to wear them. Toby is just wearing them around his neck. If you have those on, then you can't be water squished or whatever, right? So people have to get very creative in how they win.
Yeah.
And so that's what's going on right now. Everywhere we go, Toby's got these damn water goggles on his neck because he's paranoid that his friends are going to, you know, off him, I guess is the word.
This seems like a wonderful idea to have in our schools. You know, it's not like there's
and
been.
He's so. I mean, there's some. I think it's like a big prize, like $1,000 or something.
Oh.
And at varying schools, they have varying different safety items. Like at one school, I heard it was a pineapple. You had to carry a pineapple around, so which makes it a little bit more awkward. Mm-hmm. Another school, it was. This is really funny. I just remembered this. It was a bowl of cereal with milk. Right, so they're making it increasingly difficult. I think the whole wearing like swim goggles around your neck is pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
So they've got it made in that way. So it's a thing. I think.
So I know I'm calling my son, be like, so is there school shooter training going on in your school too, or is it only in California? I just want to know. You know, it's like, God,
I don't know if it's school shooting. I mean. I don't know. I'd be honest with you. When I first heard about it, I thought, is this sanctioned?
Right. Doesn't sound.
And
like
I don't know if it's sanctioned by the school because the school could just look around like a lot of people carrying pineapples and go, what's all this about?
Yeah.
All these kids these days, right?
Yeah. All right. I guess. In any event, apart from that horrifying.
Little peek into my world. Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah. All right, so there's like nothing going on.
Well,
other
I
than
mean, you know,
other
yeah.
than the same
Other than
old
CCP, yeah,
I
other than
know,
the same
really.
goddamn thing, right? Yeah.
I know. However, I do think we do have to address it. I mean, I already written, a post about it, but we do tend to talk about sort of topical in the news topics. And right now in the news is there are a lot of folks out there just thrilled and excited that the DOJ has, quote, spanked Compass and Robert Refkin, right? I mean, I've been seeing a bunch of posts like this.
Well,
What do you
okay,
think?
so you're so very clever, but after 3 years or whatever it has been to be doing this, I know all your tricks, Rob.
You know my
Not all
tricks.
of them.
That's right. That's
I know
right.
your tricks, right?
That's
So
right.
what you like to do is exaggerate about people's, reactions so that you can bring your own, counterintuitive place
That's
to it.
right.
Now, I haven't read any, crowing or like everybody's excited or whatever. Well, I mean, that's not the case. I think some people are kind of blowing it out of proportion, but like in the regular media, can I say that? I don't know what the regular media is in this. Their mainstream media. They're saying they're calling it as they see it, right? And that's that. In this latest filing, the DOJ made a footnote basically saying, "Listen, just CCP alone doesn't mean that that things are anti-competitive, right?"
Okay, so let's actually
hold
okay,
on.
go ahead.
There could be other factors there, and that's what it says. It says that it's like they're worried that people are misinterpreting their statements to say that they think that CCP is okay, and they're saying that's going too far, right? And many are interpreting them out there like, oh, the DOJ is not good with CCP, right? And I mean they're kind of saying that, but they're not overly saying that. They're just saying it's a factor and just don't take that one thing into consideration.
Okay, so let's just pull up the one actual article. This one that I referenced in my post from Real Estate News.
What's the title of the article? That's I think what you need to look at.
The title is
first.
important.
Yeah.
DOJ calls out, quote, misleading claims about its take on clear
Okay,
cooperation.
would you say just before we get started here, is that like a crowing or a freaking big, is that misleading? Is that wrong? Is there something?
I think it's slightly misleading. Yeah.
I don't think it's accurate.
I think it's slight. No, I'm not saying it's not accurate. I'm saying it's
So it's
slightly.
accurate. It's accurate.
It's accurate in the way that normal corporate left-wing press is, quote, accurate, right? It's like...
Okay, just so for the record, Real Estate News is left-wing.
No, I'm not saying they are. I'm saying, but this is a common thing that the corporate press does to ruin their effing reputation. What I mean is, to use the phrase calls out about a footnote is a step
Okay, what is a footnote?
too far. A
What is a
footnote is
footnote?
literally, it's not important enough to put into the body of the thing.
But they're going to say it needs a little bit more clarification, though, right?
My point is, like, if the headline was DOJ mentions, okay, that's probably more fair, right? DOJ notes, right? And then the first sentence is in the footnote. Like, when something is in the footnote, it's hard to call that calling out.
Well, yeah, I guess we'll agree to disagree. I mean, it's just it's syntax, right? But I mean, I think the exact
But the meaning is
function. Hold
different.
on, the exact function of a footnote is to call something out that needs more explanation. What are you saying, calling out or anything else? I mean, that's the actual job of a footnote, to bring a bit more.
Okay, but my point is, when a headline says something calls out, it would be like Greg Robertson calls out NAR leadership. You know what I mean? That has a meaning. That has a specific meaning. And then it turns out you didn't do anything of the sort. Like, in a footnote to some article, it just said, and oh, by the way, the NAR leadership, whatever. You know, it's like, it's a footnote. So that's the first thing. But then let's go on. My point is, finally made long-running Department of Justice called statements about its stance on clear cooperation misleading and out of context. The strong words easily skim past. Yeah, because it's in a footnote. You're not meant to read it. Like, appeared on page 7. Footnote was highlighted by an NAR rep in response to an inquiry. All right, so let's figure out how this happens. This thing gets released. This footnote exists. Some NAR rep, someone at NAR, said, okay, get this out to the press. Get this out to all of our surrogates and all of our talking heads, right? To talk about how this means the DOJ loves clear cooperation or loves whatever, So here we go.
Where does it say loves?
Here we go, because it says it has not taken a position on whether or not clear cooperation is anti-competitive, with some caveat, blah, 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 calls out industry players who have made claims. Again, this is misleading. DOJ did nothing of the sort, because calling out industry players would have been in the footnote or in a Twitter post or in a fucking video, whatever. The DOJ is like, hey, Revkin, stop saying these things about our stance. We didn't do that. That would be calling out. They did nothing of the sort. And then what does it go? Okay, what the DOJ says, blah, blah, blah. And then we go to the division has not taken a position that such policy standing alone, i.e. without mandated MLS publication offers of compensation or exceptions benefiting primarily large brokerages are anti-competitive. Okay, that's what the footnote says. From this slender read, we get this. It's like the article literally says DOJ doesn't mention who or what. Okay, but one of the loudest voices in clear cooperation is CEO Robert Revkin. It's like, but we don't know that the DOJ said anything about Revkin. So this is pure speculation.
But hold on. I mean, he has basically made statements that he believes that the DOJ is on his side, though.
Okay, but my point is we don't know, right? We don't know. This is pure speculation.
We know that. We know
what
that.
I mean is we don't know if that's who DOJ meant.
Okay, but I mean we're all intelligent human beings.
I'm just saying we don't know that. That's one. And then we get
right.
this.
It's probably freaking sponge fit.
And then we get this. So from that we get good side industry lawyer says Brian Schneider, partner Aaron Fox Schiff, and legal counsel for Bright MLS interprets the language as the DOJ signaling that the clear cooperation rule itself does not seem to be anti-competitive, which is mentioned nowhere in this footnote. Nowhere. Which Schneider adds is a good sign for the industry in the sense that a voluntary sharing of cooperative marketed listings is pro-competitive, not anti-competitive. None of those words or those concepts appear anywhere in this footnote.
None. But that's his take.
That's his take. No, I get it.
Others will have his take. It doesn't say.
I get it. I totally get it. But this article, this news article, and then the interpretation of it, I'm just saying, man, y'all are inflating a very large balloon of hope based on something very, very small, very slender, right? So, I actually wrote a post about this, and one of the things I mentioned was like read the actual thing. See, here's what it actually says. Okay, this is the actual
the footnote you're talking about.
Yeah, the actual footnote.
All right, let's take a look.
So hold on, let me share this tab instead. All right, and what's important is the context as well, because a footnote is a footnote to something that was said, right? So what did the DOJ actually say? In the body, it says, and the fundamental problem with the current rule is not an absence of information, but rather that it pressures sellers into making offers. Again, keep in mind the context here is the DOJ intervened in the no-select case again. Right? So the no-select, they have a settlement. DOJ said, we're not happy with this. They went back, right? And then they did a second one. So this is then coming back and like, yeah, we're not happy with this one either. Okay? And what they're not happy with is the fact that the new rules that MLS PIN would do, right, still maintains this mechanism by which, in their view, sellers are pressured into making offers. So in their view, it doesn't handle steering. Additional process around offers of compensation neither diminish the threat of steering nor address MLS PIN's role in perpetuating this system. The footnote is about this system. What system are we talking about? 2, okay. Other industry rules may interact.
So this is the footnote here, or not?
This is the footnote. This 2 here is trying to explain perpetuating this system. What the hell system are we talking about? Well, you see, there are under rules. There's other industry rules may interact with the buyer-broker commission rule. For example, many MLSs have a clear cooperation policy, which requires MLS participants post listings, which could include offers of compensation to the MLS within 24 hours of public marketing properties. Right? That's one of the rules that they're saying interacts with the system to drive steering. And then we get, of note, Industry participants have made public statements about the division's purported position on clear cooperation policies that are misleading and out of context. The division has not taken a position that such policies standing alone without mandated MLS publication of offers of compensation or exceptions benefiting primarily large brokerages, which is the office exclusive, are anti-competitive. Okay? That's literally all it says.
Yeah, I mean, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, I read that and I have an interpretation of what they say.
Of course.
Others will too. Sure.
We can all have an interpretation.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is whatever interpretation
all you're saying is your interpretation is different from others. That's
my interpretation is different. And my interpretation, unfortunately, is backed up by actual facts and evidence. Whereas this means the DOJ loves CCP is like not.
I never read anything about that. I never read anything about them loving anything. I mean, I thought they mentioned it was in a footnote. I mean, that was the third word in their article, right? They ask another attorney.
Right.
The DOJ has been slapped around and pushed down anyway, right? I mean, they did a statement of interest, didn't they do on the actual lawsuit that was the settlement, right? And
right.
Judge didn't care, thought that was ridiculous, right? So I mean, it's not like
and a footnote
the DOJ
is a
has a great track record here, right? And this is another. It seems like it's another thing of that.
So look, I mean, what I ended up saying was okay, but if you read the actual thing, right? Okay, and I'm not saying the DOJ hates these. I'm just saying like this footnote is a lot. I mean, to hang all this hope on. Like, calm down. Like that's not what this actually says. It isn't after the DOJ came out and said, "Hey, Robert, stop making these statements that are misleading and false." Right? They didn't say that. And they didn't even identify who the industry participants. For all we know, man, the industry participants could be you and me. Right? For all we know. Right?
Well, let's be honest. It would be you, not me. But
it might. I mean,
Well, no, it might be me, actually. Sorry. Let me flip that.
It might.
Turn it around.
For all we know, it could be Brian Schneider and NAR spokespeople, right? Claiming things about CCP. Like we just don't know what the DOJ meant by it. What I'm saying, though, is it's in the footnote of a sentence that was trying to tell the court the entire system is messed up. We think this entire system encourages steering and, blah, 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 right?
But okay, so let me put it this way, though. So I don't think that the people that are against CCP have been saying, the DOJ is with this. The DOJ says this. The DOJ says this. The DOJ says this. The DOJ says this. That kind of rhetoric has been coming from the people who are against CCP. Right? So I think it's very natural for people to make the conclusion when they say, hey, for those of you saying that we think that this is, this is a bullshit rule or something.
Right.
No, we don't. We haven't said anything about whether or not in context. And again, they're saying they have a little caveat there of it standing alone is a deal, right? So
right. So
I mean, I think that's something interesting because
it is.
You had one side saying the DOJ is for us, the DOJ is with us, the DOJ is listening, and they're just saying, "Calm down, man. We didn't say that." So it's like,
right.
Well, I mean, that's not a. I mean, I think that's a relevant thing to talk about here. Right. That and it's and that side, the people that are doing that are on the other side of CCP, right? So, sure. I think it's worth talking about for sure.
So, like, obviously we're talking about it, so it's worth talking about, right? My point though is, don't get your hopes up because, like I said, I'm one of those people that have said and maintained still.
Here's what the hopes up could be about, and I think this is actually relevant to get your hopes up about. This may shut down these people that are saying the DOJ is for us. That's good if you're on the side of wanting something like CCP, right? That's a good thing to celebrate, in fact.
Sure.
That these guys from now on cannot just send these things out there, these declarations that are not true, according to the DOJ. I think that's a good thing to celebrate and I think a good thing to call out, actually.
It's okay.
To use that phrase.
Sure. And I think we'll go there. So what I'll point out, though, is what I wrote was the DOJ is factually wrong. Right, that this lawyer for the DOJ, whoever wrote this brief for the for the Doselec case,
No select,
right?
yeah.
It's like she's just wrong. I don't, I don't know how to put it, because the DOJ has taken a stance on clear cooperation policy, standing alone, in the PLS.com versus NAR case. And this is their brief. This is their amicus brief, right? From, I think it's 2021, maybe 2023. And so I wrote the whole thing, but I was wanting to get to this one specific thing, right? All right. Okay.
Yada, yada, yada.
So, all right, fuck it, screw it. I'm going to stop that. All right, stop sharing. Look, the DOJ's, so the issue with PLS.com thing was, once again, the DOJ is not a party to this lawsuit. Nobody sued the DOJ. They didn't sue anybody, right? They intervened. They came in from the outside into this appeal, right, and wrote this very lengthy amicus brief saying that the lower court screwed up by dismissing PLS's case against NAR and these MLSs. Okay, because what their thing was the relevant market here is not consumers, right? The relevant market is brokers and agents, and the problem with clear cooperation policy is, in their view, that it inhibits competition between listing services. And that competition then leads to things like lower quality, lack of innovation, less choice, blah, 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 right? Like, they made that argument on PLS's behalf. Now, the thing I pointed out was, okay, technically speaking, the Department of Justice itself did not take a stance. Okay, what they did was PLS took the stance, and we backed them. We think you should listen to PLS.
So it still isn't taking a stance, is what? Yeah.
Technically,
so he is technically correct. When they
correct.
Say that.
Correct, but that's utter horseshit. We all know they took a stance. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, again, I'll go back to this. It's like it seems like they haven't taken a stance. They've made these things in different lawsuits, and all of them have been, not all of them, but I think maybe actually all of them. The settlement, the Rex, this PLS. So far, the judicial is not hearing them. Whatever their arguments are not enough to make them change the settlement, make Rex go forward, makes all those things on there. So there could be a possibility. I mean, really here, the DOJ doesn't. They're making their arguments, but their arguments are not strong enough. And
Possibly.
okay,
that's a different right. Well, that's a different point, right? So there are two things that we need to then address, right? So what I'm saying is the DOJ made their stance perfectly clear in the PLS lawsuit. Okay. So one possibility is that they changed their mind. Sure. That is a possibility, right? So this footnote reference is like a super subtle signal to like the antitrust insiders, to the lawyers at NAR and whatever, like, hey guys, we are changing our stance on CCP. Okay. That's a possibility.
Ooh, code. It's a secret language. Right? Yeah.
Right. It's some really subtle. We're not going to name anything. But we're just going to say we have not taken a stance on CCP standing alone. Blah blah blah. That's a possibility that they changed their mind. Okay. If so, then I suppose that's good news for the people who really want to see CCP around. Right. I suppose that's really good news for NAR. The second possibility, I suppose, is to your point, that they're going to say whatever they want. The judges are just going to ignore them. Like, we don't care, right? We're not listening to anymore.
Well, they just haven't made a good argument. Right. And when you make a good argument, let me know. But this thing this soapbox you're on is not,
it's not it. Right.
Yeah.
So fine. I mean, either of those cases may be true. It is possible the Department of Justice has changed their mind, right? And this is just a super subtle signal. Okay. The way I look at it is like, you are free to interpret that how you want. You are free to blow up your hopes if that's what you want. I personally would not blow my hopes up based on this slender read.
Here's what I would say. I wouldn't maybe blow my hopes up on saying that I know exactly where they stand in a way, but I am absolutely ecstatic, happy, in a sense, if I'm on the pro-CCP side, that this can shut up the opposition from saying the DOJ is for us, right? So I think that is something significant and something that, that's what I think. I think, yeah, that's how I would put, if I was going to write this, now that we've had this discussion, that's how I would view it. It's like DOJ shuts down, CCP haters, right? I mean, that's true. Because now, how is Refkin or how is anybody going to come out there and say the DOJ is for us now when they've clearly said, "Hey, man, no, we haven't said it. We haven't given you anything on where we stand." Right? When they are so adamantly saying the DOJ is on our side. Right?
It's possible. I mean, I think so. This maybe is like a little too subtle. And if Refkin and others are out there saying the DOJ is on our side, like not really. That's actually not true. Right.
That's actually not true. Yeah,
it's actually not true, but that's been the case ever since. Like, I think the better interpretation is that.
Well, now it was the case ever since, but now it's in writing. Right? Okay, whether it's a footnote, a call out,
but
whatever.
Put that all in context, right? The better understanding, in my opinion, is the DOJ is not for Refkin or the guys who want to eliminate CCP. Okay, the DOJ is simply against NAR and CCP.
I don't know that either.
Again, based on the Rex versus PLS, the PLS brief, which has not been overturned. They haven't changed their mind, right? Which, by the way, they can, right? So very recently, there was this is really relevant to this whole discussion. The Department of Justice recently reversed itself, okay, in a gun case. They went and filed a brief, essentially, having to suppressors, and saying that the court properly decided the suppressors are not arms, they're not covered in the Second Amendment, so the court properly decided that. Like a few days later, they filed a second brief, like we'd like a 30-day, timeline because we need to go back and revisit this, right? And what the people are watching that goes, okay, here's what happened. Some career lawyer at the DOJ filed that lawsuit, right, saying, this is kind of our interpretation. Pam Bondi got a hold of it. Kash Patel, other people, the new people said, wait a minute, time the F out. No, I don't know who you think you are. That is not what we believe. We absolutely are pro 2A now here, so we're going to reverse it. Right? Sure. So they are able to do that very quickly when something like this happens. Yeah. If the new people at the DOJ and the Antitrust Division, Abigail Slater and her people are like, we don't buy the CCP. In other words, they're going to take the same thing. The previous administration, they thought CCP was a real problem because, whatever, right? We don't. We think this is actually really good for consumers because, whatever. Then they can make that very clear.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we should see that in the next few weeks and months. Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's just like this, and I forget who said it on stage, but it's like one of the attorneys was always talking about like, well, the DOJ is just nebulous and they never really tell you exactly. And I don't know if that's some sort of strategy, of like just keep them guessing, right, so that they don't know where we're at. But what it does is it invites shit like this,
right?
Right, and that's just it's a challenge for sure.
Right. So that's really like all I meant was like, okay, look, believe what you want, but I wouldn't inflate your hopes a whole lot, right? Because fundamentally,
but it does basically help them, the people that are for CCP, because it shuts down some of the rhetoric that's been out there, right? And I think that's a positive thing if you're on the pro CCP side. I suppose.
If the rhetoric mattered at all, I suppose it matters. But
well, I think it was probably a strong talking point for Mr. Refkin and others to say, well, the DOJ's for us. Look, and now they can't say that anymore, and now they look like, well, shit. I mean, yeah.
I think what I'm sensing is much more interesting, and like my interview the episode I did over at Notorious with Dwiggins, right? I don't know how you feel about it. Did you see that episode?
Yep.
Okay.
Of course.
Did you get a sense that James is sort of like preparing himself mentally and emotionally for CCP to go away?
I think all of us are.
Right. So you can make all the rhetoric you want, but if it's done, if it's over, it's over.
But
right?
I mean, that doesn't mean you want to still. I mean, I'm not going to stop. Give up. Right. I mean, you might you might see these tea leaves that are saying you other things, but it's like it ain't over yet, right? The fat lady haven't sung yet, so.
I think the fat lady is clearing her throat. I think it's basically over.
me.
I mean, I think it's basically over. And I wrote that, right? I mean, when the Compass feels free to send out these semi-threatening letters to MLS CEOs, like to me it's over. When it's like MRED and SFAR, like yeah, absolutely, coming soon that you can publicly market, and like it's over. So that's what it feels like to me, and everyone's just now talking because I guess where the action needs to move to be honest, and I've said this in something recently, like if you really, really care, right? If you're one of these people that really care that buyers be able to see everything that's on the market, right? That's what you're really upset about, right? Then you need to take it to your state legislatures.
Right.
Right? Because NAR is not going to do it. They're not able to do it. The MLS is not going to do it. They're not able to do it. Okay? If that's something that's that important to you, then this actually needs to have the force of law.
Yeah.
And the threat of violence, behind it.
Okay, so with CCP as a backdrop here, can I shift the conversation
Absolutely.
a little bit? Right. So, and again, I'm the vendor advocate here, right?
Absolutely.
And I kind of linked to something on my blog, Vendor Alley, that another vendor had wrote, and let me just bring that up here so I can make sure I've got it here correctly. It was from a gentleman over at I think it was a VP of product over at Zenlist, and he was talking about the title of his thing, which was on LinkedIn. His name is Andrea Badino, VP of Product and Design at Zenlist.
Yeah.
And his LinkedIn post is titled "CCP and Office Exclusives from the Perspective of Product Execution." Right. So his kind of point here, and I'm paraphrasing, you can go to my blog, Vendor Alley, and kind of check it out, and then go to his link. It links to his LinkedIn article. That when brokers have these kind of silos of listings these exclusive listings, what does that do for the PropTech community, the vendor community that are making software? I mean, Rezo and other have gone so far to have these standards, and MLSs, have these rule sets for data quality and compliance. And I know a lot of people don't like rules, but to get the data quality and those things out in a timely manner that are accurate data, right? What do brokerages have, right? Who's checking the checkers over there, right?
Right.
Of what's happening. And there's a lot of products out there that are to help with reverse prospecting.
Sure.
CMAs, and then and when you just keep an off exclusive until the very last bit where you put it on is like it was sold 3 days ago, that breaks a lot of value propositions of some of the third-party software products out there.
Right.
And I don't think a lot of times we're thinking of these kind of like second-order consequences of what might happen there, right? And I think that's a discussion that Andrew's brought up and that we should be kind of talking about here in these kind of things of like, if like you say, if you sense from James or others, right, that, hey, the coming apocalypse is coming, what does that mean for the the vendor community, or even it just doesn't have to be like a CMA provider or a CRM provider, but anybody doing that stuff it's like, okay, now are we going to now have to deal with like there's 522 MLSs out there, right? Okay. So now it's like, how many, is it going to be individual brokers? Is it like not, Compasses famously have their own kind of tech stack, right?
Right.
But what about the Keller Williams and the EXPs and the Century 21s and the Anywhere, right? I mean, how, it's just going to, it sounds like it might make things more complicated, right?
Of course.
And then, of course, it also begs the opportunity of, of kind of another form of vendor lock-in, right? Where the vendor basically is your brokerage. And, a lot of people have written about this a lot of times about like, a lot of agents, they're 1099. They're not married to the broker, right? In fact, they kind of are suspicious of the broker and sometimes don't want to use all the broker tools because they don't want that kind of lock-in. They want to be able to like, if I want to leave, I can leave, right? So I don't know what to do here, but I think it's something we haven't talked about. and is another kind of consequence
Absolutely.
of CCP.
Absolutely.
And that
So
going
let's
away.
talk about it. Right. So put your vendor hat back on. Say you're back in the day of running CMA. Right.
Mm-hmm.
This happens. What do you do?
Right. I mean, so there's first of all statuses, right? Active, pending, listing, and sold, right?
Yep.
So a good CMA, I always say, would be, you want all status types, right? Because
Yep.
active tell you where aspirationally the market is going. Pending is kind of like, okay, well, active to pending, what that days of market is showing, how fast everything's moving. And again, that's a little weird if you're only getting pendings after they've been pre-marketed or whatever.
Right. That's right. Not only that, but say you only have 60% that you used to have.
Okay.
Right? Okay.
And
What
then,
do you? I'm just asking. What do you do? Like I understand the problems, but what does Greg Robertson, CEO of Cloud CMA, do at that point?
Well, ideally, you would probably want to get as much data as you can.
Right.
If I'm going to be contacting these brokerages,
Right.
I'm not sure, why would, Compass is going to think, or whoever, let's just say, X brokerage, X tech brokerage, they think they are, says, well, I don't want them to use your CMA. I want them to use my CMA.
Right.
So we're not going to, we don't have an API. We're not going to do anything.
Right.
I mean, that's, I think, problematic, right? It may be within their rights to do that, but hopefully, what I would do is like, the best comp is a sold comp, but I think any good CMA wants to all status types because it tells a whole picture. So I would probably the thing that I would really, the hill I would die on is getting that listing once it's sold, no matter what kind of machinations were on there, onto the MLS. And I guess from what we're hearing, it's high 90s that end up going back on the MLS anyway.
At some point,
that they don't
it's a
get
timing
sold.
issue. Right.
Yeah. So,
Okay. So
I mean,
what I'm saying is, when you think about it, okay, let's just say that happens, right? To your point, you would be picking up the phone and calling Robert Refkin, be like, "Hey, man, I want your data."
Yeah. Can you imagine that phone call?
Right, and then there's going to be a back and forth. Like, well, I don't want you to have my data because I only want my people to have it. Whatever, right?
Yeah.
There'll be something. Okay. So say you don't have 30% of listings, 40%, or their timing is all off, right?
Yeah. I would say the DOJ wants to give comps to Cloud CMA and Refkin is not giving it to us.
Right. Something. I mean, you would agitate. My point is, I think what ends up happening is you would have to acknowledge, right? Presumably, if I'm you, if I were running a PropTech company in that situation, I send out a blast email to all my users. I do a webinar or whatever. It's like, the product is worse now.
Right. Well, I don't know if I do that, but yeah.
No, because we don't have access to 30% of the data or whatever. The timing is now off. We're not sure who's, to your point, checking the checkers.
Do we have to add disclaimers now about days on market?
You just have to say, this is inferior to what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. Last week. But what's your alternative?
Right.
Right? What's your alternative? So, and then at some point, I imagine, you whatever, you get in touch. And it's like, okay, Robert, like, what do we have to do here? Like, let's make a deal. You get into that mode, right? And then maybe, who knows? They say, okay, fine, pay me, and then you could have this, or I'll give it to you a week later. Whatever it is, right? Like, it doesn't seem obvious to me that if something like this happens, then PropTech all of a sudden becomes like worthless. Right, because again, I look.
No, it becomes. I mean, it becomes more complicated for sure. But I mean,
absolutely,
that's the life of a PropTech thing.
right. No, it sucks. I'm not saying this is like good, and I'm not trying to say like I'm trying to be like real, eyes wide open, clear about what the consequences are. Right.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's more of a thing of like, okay, and like you said, a lot of people, and again, I mean, I'm trying to be pragmatic about things, as you are in this, as we are in this discussion, right? So I don't want it to go away. So honestly, there are MLSs that have it this way right now. Right. So I mean, we're having to deal with these kind of issues right now. I mean, not as widespread as it might be, but can we think ahead?
Right.
That if we're going to implement any policy, that like, okay, you know what? Yeah, we have this or that, but you at least have to put the listing on, once you sell it within 2 days, or I mean, some other kind of policies that would help, out with
Right.
help the agents out, trying to do their jobs as just part of the MLS too.
I think this goes to more general points / questions, right? And what you just said tipped me off to it. Like, we need a policy. Okay. My thing is, at this point, I think as organized real estate at a higher level, right? I think we're far better off if we stop talking about policy and we start talking about enforcement. Like, in other words, okay, whatever policy you have, whatever it is, right? How are you going to enforce it?
Right.
Right. And these MLSs, all the MLS leaders, all the association people, it's like what really strikes me is they just kind of assume that the important part is the policy making. Right? That the important part is we get together and we pass a policy. I think the important part is how you're going to enforce it. Right? Because it is not obvious to me that you control the MLS, number one. Number two, if you are the MLS, it is not obvious to me that you have that big a carrot and that big a stick over large brokerages.
Right. I mean, it goes individual, but I mean, from what I hear from MLSs is that as far as enforcement or whatever you want to call it, I mean, the MLS really doesn't have to do anything. Other agents snitch on each other. Right, so they're just basically following up from what other agents are complaining about, right?
So they snitch, and then what?
And then it's every MLS has different ways of doing this, but typically it's a warning letter,
right?
And then if they don't fix it, it's another warning letter,
and
then
the
third time it's a fine,
and they want to kick you out, right?
And they'll kick you out, right?
Right.
And then the broker's notified. I mean, and that puts them in jeopardy.
Right.
They put pressure on,
right.
and then some MLSs give away those fees to local charities or some other kind of things like that, right? Because I don't think any MLS really wants to make money off of fines. They just want to make sure that the data is, accurate and timely.
Do.
No,
I see line items and revenues fines. I absolutely see it. It's
no, but I mean, what you don't see is maybe those that revenue items. I know that I think ARMLS famously that funds a scholarship program for a real estate degree at the local university.
I've not seen ARMLS's P&L statements. I've seen a lot of others, and it does not. It just funds like the MLS
maybe
itself.
People can educate us in the comments here, but
whatever.
I don't think any MLS wants to make money off.
My point is,
fines are indicative of, it could be indicative of bad quality, right? Of data quality. So the MLS doesn't want to make money off of like getting money, but dealing with bad data. No way. I don't think
like
so.
I said, I mean, that's secondary. My point, though, is, okay, so you find them and you try and enforce it. If it's 40% of your listings, can you really do that? If it's 40% of your members, can you really do that? Like, can you kick out a brokerage that has 40% of your members?
Well, I mean, I think it's not kicking out. It's like it's making the broker understand is like, an agent of yours has lied about the days on market, or the agent of yours has lied about the square footage. Can't you see why that is not a good thing? And they want to fix it.
I'm not paying this fine. You're not going to find my agent.
I don't see that happening. I think the minute that they say I don't care, I'm not going to do it, the agent can flub the square footage by 30%. I don't care.
Right.
When it happens to them on the other side, they're going to care, right? Well, why is this? Well, you said it was okay with you. Now everybody's doing it. I mean, you have to. I think I disagree with what you're saying. Again.
No, so I'm not saying. My point is, I really want to know what's the enforcement mechanism. How are you going to enforce whatever policy? Because everyone is operating.
It's fines. We just went through how it works.
Everybody's operating as if the MLS still had cooperation and compensation. And that is why no broker can afford to walk away from the MLS. The MLS doesn't do that anymore. Why can't a broker just walk away from the MLS? Right? We've had this conversation before, right?
Well, why have they done it? It's been
Inertia is
since
incredibly
August
strong.
17th, right?
Inertia is incredibly strong. It's incredibly powerful.
Because here's why, Rob. Maybe this is counterintuitive to what you think, but maybe they look at the overall good of an MLS provides, and they've made the correct assumption, in my view. This is worth it.
Yep.
This is worth having to follow
I
these
agree.
rules. This is worth doing this. This is worth all
I
those
agree.
things. What I get out of this from the MLS is worth these little things that come up every now and then.
And I think
it could be just as strong as that, right?
it could be. And I think we're going to find out in the next few years, right? Not next few weeks, not next few months, next few years, right? Where that stands. The second general thing is, and this is relevant to kind of how you brought this up, which is, okay, what happens? How does a PropTech company, cope with this? Right? I think one of the things that's happening here, and it's easiest to understand if we talk about like Zillow and Homes and Realtor and the portals, right? And so I've written already in one of my things, I don't see a scenario where Compass listings don't end up on Zillow. I just don't, right? Like, I don't think it's possible, or it would be extraordinarily difficult to be a real estate agent in 2025 and going to your seller and being like, I'm going to hide your listing from buyers. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's very, very difficult.
Well, that's what they're doing, right? That's what exclusive listing means,
I know,
right?
I know, but it's still like all the listings like end up on Zillow. It's.
I think there's a name for it. Listing, listings inventory differentiation.
Differentiation or whatever. Right? No, I get it.
I mean, everybody. That's all in their playbook. Is exactly not. They want people to come to their site, right? They want people to come to them. They absolutely believe that that's a strategy, is keeping it off Zillow. I mean, it's insano to me, but that's what they talk about.
And we'll find out how the market responds to that, right? Because I don't know what they're saying in those living rooms and dining tables, right? I don't know that the Compass agent is saying that here's how it works. It means we're going to keep it off. Therefore most buyers can't see it, or they can only see it to come to our website. I don't know if they're explaining it all. I don't.
I don't think they're explaining. I mean,
I don't. No, maybe they are, right? And the seller's like, I'm an informed seller, and I'm. This is great. Let's go.
No, don't put it on Zillow. Gotcha. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
But you know what I'm saying? I don't. Since I don't know what the conversation, the level of disclosure, level of informed consent, I don't know. I think the market is going to tell us pretty quickly. My point is, I just don't see a scenario, right? And here's the thing. Why does Compass want to get rid of CCP and do all this stuff? Because what they want is they want to go to the publicly market. They want to be able to put listings on Zillow without it going to like other brokers. Okay.
But Zillow's model is, if they put them on Zillow, right? It's going to go. Their model is they're going to sell it to other buyers agents, right?
I understand all that, right? So the thing I'm pointing out is, to me, this isn't about whether the listing ends up on Zillow or not. To me, this is about who gets to decide that a listing ends up on Zillow or not. Mm-hmm. Right now, today, it's the MLS that decides.
No, it's not. It's the seller that decides. A seller could and again, this is another false narrative they put out there. The seller can say, "Do not display on internet."
Once the seller has not checked that box, who decides? It's the MLS that decides.
Well, the seller's made the decision. What the hell? They can make that decision right now, Rob.
Greg, you can't. If you're going to say everything is decided by the seller, then everything that Compass is saying is also true, right? Because the seller had to decide and all that, right? Well, I hate my camera. I need to upgrade. This
I just upgraded my camera. I'll send you my old.
Yeah, send me yours. All I'm saying is, at the institutional level right now, it's the MLS that decides.
No, it isn't. A seller can say, "I don't want my listing on the internet." Absolutely, they can.
Okay,
say that.
so when these vendors are getting their data source, are they getting it from 5 million sellers? Today, the PropTech vendor, where are they getting the data from?
No, it depends. If it's a they can send it to Zillow directly. It'll go on a second tab in some markets. In some markets, it'll go right into the main tab.
We were talking about PropTech vendors, Zenlist and the CMA companies, the CRM companies. Where are they getting their data from? Where are they getting the listings
the MLSs.
from? For 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're arguing with me about it. They're getting from the MLSs, meaning that the MLS decides where the data goes and who gets it under what terms. The larger brokers, I think, are saying, no, I think I'm going to decide that. That's it. It's a power struggle between those two, right? The smaller brokers have no say in this because they're small. The MLS like, get lost. You're tiny, right? But the MLS can't say that to like these big companies that represent huge chunks of market share. That's what it is. And like I said, the power.
I mean,
shift,
everything I think has, good things and bad things along with it, right? I mean, it's
Absolutely.
not everything you're signing up for. So
absolutely,
the MLS just has to do a good enough job to say, yes, we have these rules in place.
yeah,
We think that, we can't just bend to everybody's business model, right? We
Right.
have to have the part of this being part of this cooperative is that
Right.
we have to kind of settle on something. And sometimes you're
Right.
going to like these things and sometimes you're not.
That's right.
And as long as they're on the side of making their value proposition is going to be more on the positive side, they're okay. I
Absolutely.
don't see anything right now that is like going to cause that's enough for a brokerage to just walk, right? And who knows what'll happen next? I just my prayer out there is that we somehow we get to a buyer's market, and this is not just for CCP, but somehow get to a buyer's market as quickly as possible because all these issues will go away. Because the days on market are going to be crazy. And it's like when somebody says to you, well, we're going to keep it up to Zillow, before they get the W out of their fucking mouth, the seller's going to go, what are you, fucking crazy? And then shut it down, right?
I mean, maybe we'll see. But I remember kind of is back in the crash days, right? Right after bubble, when it was just the strongest buyer market we'd ever seen. There were a lot of companies that were talking about exclusive buyer lists. So they would be like, we're going to sign this buyer up and I'm going to, right, I have an exclusive and now I'm going to go.
What buyer would like sign an exclusive agreement when there's just so many damn
Dude, it was
listings
happening all the
out there?
time because buyers, like, think about it.
I don't remember reading a lot of articles about like.
There
as
were
we
a
are-
lot of attempts to start a buyer MLS.
All right. Okay. All right.
I was involved with a couple of them, like buyer MLS,
Okay, all
was
right.
like a big thing. It didn't go anywhere because it's much harder, right? It's
So
way harder.
Again, yeah.
Right.
I think that's a non.
And there's a lot of
factor.
personally identifiable information because the idea was like, okay, well, I have these 10 buyers. I have I have an agreement with them, and they are a couple, doctor and a lawyer, this age, and this is their income range, and this like, dude,
whole
putting that
thing
on a
about-
database is freaking like, come on, it's not
The
going to
whole
happen.
thing about
right?
this, and I don't know if I said it on this podcast or it might have been a recent one I just recorded, but Refkin reminds me of, like these agents that have never seen a down market, right? They just don't know what it's like. So all the decision making, all the strategy is like, this is going to last forever, just like interest rates. Oh, we'll have these. I mean, and that's where they're making the decisions because they haven't seen the way it has that what happens, right? Because this elongated kind of thing that we've been on so far, right? And it's just the people that have been through these kind of cycles, and they will turn. Like I said, it will turn.
It will turn.
They're going to
Absolutely.
realize, shit. Well, now I put all my eggs in this basket of this kind of pre-marketing thing, and it's a buyer's market now, and shit. That's like actually the stupidest thing in the world to do, right? But I put all my eggs in my basket. My identity is about that, right? So
Yeah. Like the thing that I don't have the data at the tip of my fingers. I don't know. It's just a gut feeling, right? Because you and I both lived through that. Okay,
a couple times.
Yeah, we're old. We're old as fuck
Yeah.
now, right? What I kind of remember though is like during that depth of the bubble, when it was absolutely a buyer's market. You know what I mean? The top agents were still listing agents. That's kind of what I remember. The top agents were still listing agents. They were just more effective at marketing their listings, and they were doing more, to deal with buyers. But they weren't necessarily running around with 40, 50 buyers driving them around in cars. The top the agents, what I remember, are still listing agents. Right? And the list to last did not go away during the down market. Do you remember anything like that?
I don't remember it like that at all, right? I mean,
You remember the
it'd
top
be
agents
interesting
being
to see
buyer
some-
agents?
I don't remember. I don't remember on either side of it. I mean, the stuff that I remember was just like agents had to get really good at like selling foreclosures. That's
Yeah,
what I remember
yeah,
from the last
Yeah.
one.
I
That's the
remember, but
biggest thing
again,
that
there
jumped
was
out
our
of my
listing
head.
agents, right? And then they were going out there saying, "Do you have a buyer?" And talking their sellers into like drop price and then give this concession. Like,
it seems like that those days it flipped where, we always say that the buyer's agents have to work a lot harder.
Right.
In those days, the selling agents had to work a lot harder because they had to figure out how to get this thing out of the bank and how to do this and how to do that. And the buyer's just waiting there with their money. Okay, whenever you're ready. Right?
And there were there were fewer buyers. I mean, that's one of the reasons, right? There were fewer qualified buyers. Because this is right during the GFC and there was no mortgage to be had. So somebody comes like,
can you imagine coming up with a strategy of this pre-marketing for in a GFC or kind of that kind of market? It's ridiculous.
I don't think it's that ridiculous because the whole premise behind all this pre-marketing ends up being, I'm going to put together a database of buyers. Right. Okay, well, if it's close to a buyer's market, that's a strength. Right. We have a database of 50,000 qualified buyers. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that from what I remember, even in the depths of the bubble, the top agents were all still listing agents. Right? They just had to do things a little differently than they do now. Right? They had to go work a little harder and like try and get buyers in and try and keep the deal together. But I still remember them being the listing agents. So I don't think that changes. There's something sort of fundamental about that to me.
Right.
But like I said, I mean, we'll see. And keep in mind, like, I don't want people to think like I'm pro or anti-CCP. I'm not, except in one respect, which is clear cooperation policy absolutely serves to eliminate competition between MLSs. Like that's just true. And that's what the DOJ's thing was.
Okay. I don't agree with that, but okay.
Like I said, it's
something like you're starting by dropping a bomb like that when we first started the podcast, and now you want to end the podcast by dropping a bomb.
It's not a bomb. I mean, like we've talked about it. If you're an agent, man, you could pick among 5,000 different brokerages. You have one choice for MLS. One. Like, that's just true.
But that's not directly tied to CCP.
It's directly tied to CCP because CCP prevented PLS and Top Agent Network from becoming a thing.
No, the courts did that.
What do you mean the courts did that?
Well, I mean, if didn't they try to like get that away and didn't they not make that? Did they not lose or it wasn't decided or?
They both settled, but the issue's still out there, and I don't know what NAR promised Top Agent Network and PLS to get them to settle. Right, litigation is expensive. I'm just saying, like, so far the evidence is. These two companies popped up to try and do these private listing network things. NAR came and said, oh, no, we're not having that. We're not having competition with the MLS. CCP, everybody. They lost everyone, just pulled out. Like, what's the point? They went bankrupt. They sued. I mean, that's the story, right? And then it's gone through appeals, and now they settled. That's where we're at, right? So I'm just saying, like, just fine. Maybe it's not CCP. Just look at the whole structure of the industry. You have 1.6 million agents, right? So consumers have a choice of 1.6 million people who could help them. 1.6 million agents have something like 75,000 brokerages. So they could pick among 75,000 different brokerages, right? And then MLS, one. There's one in your market.
There's not one in my market, but...
There's one in your market.
No, there isn't.
How many MLSs do you have in Huntington Beach?
Well, I mean, I would say Southern California. I mean, there's San Diego, there's Sierra
That's not your
West,
market. I'm saying for Huntington Beach, how many MLSs are there? One. There's one.
Well, yeah, and then whoever the nutcases that want to sell it on their own, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the issue. So
But I mean, there's no. But again, whether you want to go CLEC or whatever, there's nothing stopping another set of brokers to start their own MLS and say,
sure.
We have better value propositions. Come over here.
I think that is what is going to happen. I think that's what the DOJ wants, and we'll see. My point, though, is this: whichever direction we go, there are trade-offs, and they're both going to suck, and they're both going to have, you know what I mean? Good. Like, it's trade-off. There are no solutions. This idea that the current status quo is wonderful, like, it is, and then there are problems, right? The future is going to have different problems, right?
Yeah,
and have different
for
positives.
sure.
Like, it's just trade-offs. And from a PropTech standpoint, I figure, yeah, I mean, they're going to be trade-offs. It's going to suck in a lot of ways, and it's going to be good in some ways. We don't know, right? So, I don't know. I'm one of these people that, like, I don't believe in, like, solutions anymore. I believe in trade-offs. Like, what are you willing to accept? What we used to have, right, was a trade-off that went something like this. We're going to collectivize into this MLS. Right? Hey, everybody, you're going to have to give up some of your power and your ability, right, to do what you want with your own stuff, because of the trade-off you get was guaranteed payment. Okay? I don't know what the new trade-off is, right? And the MLS have to figure that out. That's basically what it comes down to. And all this rhetoric and all this, like, consumers and the
I think
DOJ,
it's more, I would look at it more of like, okay, the trade-off or the benefit and trade-off, as you say, like, I would look at it this way. It's, here are the 10 things you get by being with an MLS, right?
Sure.
And at that point they decided, okay, this is worth it, right?
Right.
Compensation was one of those. 1 of 10 bullets.
It was the
right.
it was the bullet.
Okay, sure.
It was the most
you could say
important
that.
bullet. Yeah.
But, there's still 9 bullets left.
Sure.
And so far it seems that most brokerages are saying, it's still worth it, right?
Absolutely.
Now,
Yeah. I'm not saying they haven't. Right? What I'm saying is when you lose the main bullet, you better replace it.
Well, I don't know if you have to replace it. I mean, sure, that would be, if you want to add more services on there, sure. I mean, that would be a smart thing to do, anybody to do. One of these features is going away, but we've added this new feature for sure.
This reminds me of a joke. I can't tell it on a podcast. I'll tell you afterwards. But for people who know, this reminds me of the Patrice O'Neill routine about, hey, ladies, what would you do if you got into a terrible train accident and you lost your Go look it up on the internet. Go watch that.
That's a good time to wrap then.
That's a good ending to wrap in. But that is what MLS have to figure out how to do, I think. And again, it's trade-offs, right? There are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. We're going from this system to this one. There are going to be trade-offs. It's going to suck in lots of ways. I'm not buying like Robert's statement, like, this is so great for sellers. Like, maybe, but it's going to suck for buyers. Like, it's going to suck for these other things. So there are winners and losers, and it's a trade-off. And then we'll see what the market says and, go from there. All right. So, anyway. All right. So I'll tell you the joke afterwards.
All right.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to us.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye now.